Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga chapter review. This one's going to be for chapter 8, which is called It Doesn't Matter. Overall, I think this is a pretty interesting chapter. We certainly jumped into a certain amount of action on the verge of happening here. Maybe not the full scope of what we expected to happen in terms of like, oh, it's two of the Divine Tree characters heading out, but the other two held back. That's interesting, but will they come into play? Because it seems like a bunch of action is just about to happen. Then there's a bunch of other little setup things that happen throughout this in terms of like Ada and Mitski have this very interesting scene that I'm excited to go through. The big cliffhanger reveal at the end when it comes to Jura and Hidari is super intriguing to see what exactly that ends up like amounting to. The only thing I would perhaps say is that because it is a volume ending chapter, I maybe expected it to maybe just do a little bit more, just for it to feel a little bit more like, okay, we have some like answers and we'll see them explored going forward, whereas this was just a lot more questions kind of coming up, and it felt more set up than the volume ending chapters usually being, you know, okay, something's immediately in progress. So kind of like, you know, half and half style thing here in terms of like what I expected / wanted, but you know, I don't think it's a bad chapter by any means. You know, maybe what could have been, but let's get into talking about this one sort of like page by page. So cover page is Jura on the front. Makes sense given what happens in the chapter. Not like the black background here, and it's a nice depiction of Jura himself. And of course the chapter is called It Doesn't Matter. Now, let's get into this. So we start off with a bit of a recap here. It is Ada watching the end of the Mitski and Boruto conversation. She witnesses Boruto tell Mitski, "I'm your son, it's that simple. Come find me anytime." And she is blown away by this. She thinks this is so cool on behalf of Boruto that he said this and how he handled this situation. It is clear that she is developing feelings for Boruto here, and a large part of what we'll see with Ada over the course of this chapter seems to be this idea of her kind of realizing that she doesn't like the way Kawaki treats her, and she kind of in a way comes potentially to realize like what is her perception on what kind of love is. When she says she kind of loves Kawaki, why is that the case? And then how does that compare to these feelings that she has when she sees Boruto do all this stuff that she actually thinks is really cool and interesting, and that she actually wants to talk to Boruto, as we'll see later on in the chapter. So you're seeing that development of that kind of Ada arc in terms of like her own arc about her feelings, and how that relates to like her powers and how they limit who she can actually have real relationships with, and of the people who she can, how there's still some conflict in there about that. So interesting stuff. But immediately we see Kawaki is just like, hey, quit standing around, track down Mitski for me before Boruto gets away. And she's just like, yeah, hold on, I just need a minute. Delta is here, and she speaks up for Ada and is just like, hey, stop being rude towards dear Ada. You're annoying me. And he's just like, I don't care how you feel. Go ahead, be mad. Demon is here just taking all of this in. He says like a line later on in the chapter, but otherwise it's just there because he's obviously next to his sister, of course, to protect her. And so Ada has found out where Mitski is, I guess, or Boruto, in the forest, 20 plus kilometers south of the Great Gate. He's mine, let's go, Delta. So Kawaki takes Delta with him here, and she's just like, scumbag, I'm heading out, dear Ada. I'll yell at him real good for you, okay? And she's just like, thanks, Delta, be careful, watch over Kawaki. And we just get the thumbs up, of course, as Delta heads out. And she says to Kawaki in flight here, you know, the moment dear Ada tires of you, I'm going to kill you. And he just says, and this is very interesting, once I'm done with my goals, I'll go away on my own. And this is important in terms of like this interesting characterization of Kawaki post omnipotence, of that all these lies that he's trying to kind of keep up, just to effectively fulfill the goal of taking out all the Otsutsukis. And of course, he himself is part of that. And so it seems like as part of his goals, he is also going to end up, killing himself at the end of this. He feels this is all that he's here to do, is just wipe out the Otsutsukis, and then that's it for him. It's obviously ignoring a lot of this stuff about how other people care about him, and that deep down he does care about other people, but he is so set on, this is what I have to do. This is why you're waiting for like a situation where we can get Kawaki and Boruto having their conflict, and Boruto to beat some sense into this guy, because we know there's more to him there than he's presenting right now. And in the same way that like Ada's frustrated with him, Boruto's frustrated with him, I think we as the audience are a bit frustrated with Kawaki as a character here, because he's not showing as much as he could be. He's not showing his potential really, and you want to see what makes him that interesting character. But we also see a Claw Grimes running through the forest on the outskirts of Konoha. And then we basically just get that Shikamaru has been talking to Boruto about what exactly is happening here. And we just get the idea we're catching up on the tail end of Boruto informing Shikamaru about what he knows about these things. So Shikamaru is just like, divine tree, they soak up all life on the planet, so is the planet doomed? And Boruto says, we're not there yet. But if Kawaki or I get devoured, they'll finish evolving and bear chakra fruit. Then the planet will die. So presenting us this idea of like, obviously the big difference with these divine tree beings is that it's this dynamic and ability to move around the place situation. Whereas before it's just one Ten-Tails and you have to feed someone to that Ten-Tails. In this case, there are 4 separate characters where either Kawaki or Boruto can be kind of fed to anywhere. And immediately a divine tree is going to kind of happen. The exact details after that is obviously hard to predict with how much things have changed, but the core dynamic still seems to be that it puts pressure on Boruto and Kawaki in any fight that they're in against those 4 characters, because if they are consumed, the planet is done for also. So that's quite interesting. And yeah, we just get some catching up here of that. This is where Shikamaru tells Boruto that, Moegi was captured by one of these things as well. What's going on there? Boruto says the Ten-Tails are using their chakra. It's why they're still alive. For what purpose, I'm not sure of yet. And Shikamaru asks then, how much do you actually know? Now, he doesn't get an answer to this. Boruto's obviously, I'm guessing, would have said something about me and Cash and Koji figured this, and this out. Because Boruto seems to know that there is some sort of idea about how to free Sasuke, but he just wasn't able to do it in the initial chapters. So there is more here, we're just not getting it yet. Next time they have a conversation, I suppose we'll learn some of this stuff. But they're interrupted by a message coming in to Shikamaru from Kawaki. And so there's a bit of a back and forth here about like, can I keep both of these transmissions open without each of them hearing each other? And she's just like, yeah, we can actually do that. You'll be the only one who can hear Boruto and Kawaki at the same time. So Kawaki just reports and is just like, hey, I've pinpointed Boruto's location. I'm nearly there now. I'm going to attack with Delta and we'll take him in, basically. And Shikamaru is just trying to point out that, hey, don't rush in. Remember, he's gotten stronger. Wait for backup. But Kawaki's going to do it anyway. But because Boruto can hear Shikamaru speak, he's just like, Kawaki's coming for me, is he? And he's just like, well, later then, I'll be in touch. And he's just like flying Raijin Jutsus out of there. And so we immediately cut back to then Kawaki and Delta mid-air just stopping and being like, like, I don't sense him. Like, he should be within my range, but he's not here. Maybe he sensed you coming. No, I haven't felt his aura once, so it's got to be the same for him. He vanished before he perceived me. And so this gets Kawaki a little bit suspicious of the Shikamaru conversation, of that he kind of feels like, well, because I talked to him just before we arrived here, and now all of a sudden it seems like he's not here, did Shikamaru somehow, tell Boruto what's going on here? So there's some suspicions here. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But then we cut to Mitski at the kind of Ada and Demon house. So he comes in and it's just like, I apologize, I didn't realize you were here. Hope I'm not intruding. And she immediately inquires about, hey, I was very surprised that you did what you did to Kawaki like a few chapters ago. And he's just like, was he mad? Hard to say. He told me to find you, but it was simply to locate Boruto. He flew off as soon as I did. And Mitsuki's just like, I guess he feels it's a waste of time to berate me. And Demon speaks up and is just like, saying that doesn't make you feel sad? Because obviously they know how important Mitsuki's son is to him. And so here's Mitsuki suddenly being like, oh yeah, I guess he doesn't really care. And they're like, and you're okay with that? And Mitsuki just says, not really. That itself doesn't matter to me. That's what I've felt for quite some time now. And then he says to Ada specifically, Ada, up until I'd met you, I'd never known the emotion love. And Ada's like, are you hitting on me? That'd be a waste of your time. And he's like, no. I understand it's a fault. It's faults a result of your ability. Rather, I'm thanking you for, if it wasn't for you, I might have gone through life without ever experiencing this splendid emotion. I wonder if it's because I'm an artificial person created from scratch. It's not just love. I don't really understand who I even am. And yet, I didn't think it mattered as long as I had a son who continuously illuminated me. You could even say that most things didn't matter to me, including me, myself. But I was wrong. Because if I don't bother to give myself affirmation first, I'll lose sight of who my son is, what the most important thing is before I'm even aware of it. And Ada's just like, oh wow, like Boruto made you realize all of this? That's great. And it is kind of interesting to see him kind of talk about things this way. Because of course the big thing that Boruto ultimately said to him is just that, like, in a way, trust yourself. It's like, you don't need a son to kind of be your guiding light. You are strong on your own, and you have to understand that about yourself first. And part of the understanding is that, like, Mitsuki realizing that, like, oh yeah, only the person who is actually my son would say that to me. And that's why it's, like, all the more important what actually happened here. But then Mitsuki continues and says, this might be a bit presumptuous of me, but I think we are similar. So him comparing himself to Ada. I don't know why I love Kawaki, Mitsuki says. But Ada says, but that's what love is. Your chest tightens just thinking about him. It doesn't really matter why it happens. You simply can't comprehend that because my ability caused you to experience false love. You might be right. It's just I was scared when I realized that who I thought of as my son might not be so. I then feared losing it. So I stopped thinking about whether or not the son was the real thing. And then Ada picks it up and says, you're saying I'm the same, that I'm a foolish girl who's in love with being in love. I didn't mean it like that. Sorry, I guess I was being presumptuous. Maybe, but can I be blunt with you? We're talking about love right now. Talk about drama. And I'm like, what? There's just something throughout this whole conversation that feels a little bit like, I would say almost overwritten, where I'm like, there's a point you are trying to make throughout all of this, but I think you are getting lost in some of the almost like terminology that's getting used here. The fact that, like, every time Mitsuki says son, you have to read the sentence again and kind of translate son to very important person to me in your head, and that Mitsuki in his head is thinking about, like, this is love, but, like, Ada's is focused on romantic love, whereas Mitsuki's is just, like, person that's important to me. And then they're trying to compare these two different arcs that are different, but obviously are connected to a certain degree because, as has been pointed out, it's Mitski as an artificial person who has never really experienced, like, love in a kind of typical way, but now was kind of forced to experience it and kind of realizes that, like, oh yeah, like, that technically is, I think, more or less part of the feeling that I have towards my son, is that idea of, like, I care about them so much that it is love to a certain degree. But I'm trying to just figure out in my head. And then you have to add on top of that the omnipotence swap and the whole, like, it's Kawaki who he considers to be his son, but then he realizes in terms of his feelings that it's Boruto who is that person. And they're trying to compare that arc to Ada, who is this character who, because of her ability, doesn't know what true love is with most people, because they are forced to be attracted to her, care about her in that way. But she struggles in terms of her feelings towards them because her ability forces them to care about her. And then of the people that doesn't apply to, there's only a handful of them in like the entire world, and she has conflicting feelings in that regard, because she feels it's Kawaki who's the one for her, but now she's having these new feelings about Boruto. And I suppose that's the point that's being made here, is that they're both in this situation where Kawaki is kind of disappointing them in the expected role, and they're both realizing that Boruto is actually maybe the important one to them. Why exactly she says talk about drama? Like, we're talking about this right now, talk about drama. And it's just like, okay, yeah, what are we doing here? We're really focused on the drama stuff here. And Mitski's just like, yeah, I suppose it doesn't matter. But Ada then says, and as she remembers Boruto saying, I'm your son, it's that simple. I think I want to have a long talk with Boruto. So I'm guessing this is actually something that's going to happen here. Because she's kind of wanting Boruto, and has been subtly supporting the idea of like, yeah, she wants Boruto to kind of knock some sense into Kawaki to get the Kawaki that she actually cares about back. But now it's kind of like, no, maybe I have feelings for you, and how does that affect what's kind of going on here? It's an interesting one. But then we cut to the kind of the main kind of sequence here towards the end of the chapter, getting towards the end anyway. So once again, we see the clog rhyme running through the forest, but then we cut back to Jura and Hidari, who are in the Ten Tails area. Jura has a black cube behind him, and he just kind of like leans back into it with his head, and so his eyes are basically in the box, but then we cut to the clog rhyme and his head is poking out of the clog rhyme. So there's a connection between the black box thing here and then the claw marks, which is interesting. And so he's looking around and realizes that, oh, we're in the right position here. It's time to get out. So he hops out of the clog rhyme in the forest and says, Hidari, you come too. So the two of them have appeared right in front of the Leaf Village. So they're just about to enter here as we get the next scene, which is Ino and Shikamaru talking, and basically him pointing out that, hey, Ino, don't disclose what you heard here to anyone else, no matter what your opinion is. It's top secret. And she's just like, I know, but it's so hard to believe. But then she immediately informs him, Lord Eighth, trespassers, too near the Great Gate, checking chakra signatures. One is unknown. The other is a match for Uchiha Sasuke. So this makes sense because we've talked about the idea that they are using the chakra signature, they're using the chakra of the person that they're based on by trapping them in the tree. So it makes sense that Hidari is viewed as basically being Sasuke because it's his chakra that's kind of coming through. The other being an unknown, given that, like, obviously we view this as being, like, Ishiki is who Jura is based on, we think, but obviously they haven't revealed that yet. I guess that would be technically an unknown, because I'd have to go back and check of, like, did they ever know for sure that it was Ishiki when it was arrived in? I'm pretty sure they didn't, but I'm not sure if that's meant to be any sort of a reveal as such, because obviously Jura is meant to be the mysterious member of the group, and we'll see what happens here. But as he walks through, Sarada's like, Dad, and so she's on the move as well, she and Sumire, so that's important. And then we get Hidari being like, so where is he? Where is Uzumaki Naruto, your target? And Jura says, I don't know his location, but I can tell. And so we'll get the explanation on this in a couple of pages. At this point, the two of them are confronted by Leaf Shinobi, but they basically get taken out immediately. So they get wood-style, kind of speared straight through their middle. They're all dead. And this happens as Ada kind of reports to Shikamaru that, like, sorry, that, like, I saw them earlier, but I didn't report it to you immediately. We have to evacuate the civilians. That's the focus, of course. So yeah, they're enemies. And from there, after killing those guys, Jura walks into a rare bookshop and is looking around all these amazing books and is like, oh, this looks promising. This is magnificent. And Hidari's just like, so he's here. Naruto is in here. And Jura looks back at him like, that amuses me, the fact that you said that with a straight face, that you actually think Naruto's in here. No, I'm just looking at the books. Hidari then immediately jumps out the top of the bookshop and is kicked by the arriving Kawaki. So here we get the confrontation here. Delta and Kawaki going up against Hidari and Jura, who walks out of the bookshop and is like, let's not fight here, you'll damage the treasure trove. And he just immediately wood styles and kind of like completely takes Kawaki up in this mass of wood style. And it looks like he's about to kind of finish him here, but Kawaki defends using Sukuna Hakona, which is the shrinking technique. So he gets out of that situation. He then goes in with the sort of like ninja tech hand, where he can kind of like morph it. It also kind of ends up looking a lot like wood style, but it's not. It's ninja tech arm kind of transformation stuff that he can do. And Jura just punches straight through it. So we're seeing just how powerful Jura is here, because Kawaki of course is meant to be like pretty high level, obviously. Demon obviously is implied to be the most powerful still, I'm guessing, but we'll see what happens there. So yeah, then just some quick taijutsu, and Kawaki is KO'd here. He just gets punched, sent flying into a water tank on top of a building, and he's out. He's out cold for the rest of the chapter here, with Jura just saying, I won't kill you yet, so be still, Otsutsuki. So he's aware, of course, Kawaki's Otsutsuki. He could like consume him here and accomplish his goals, but he's looking for Naruto, of course, the target. So Delta goes over to look after Kawaki, as Jura, left in the sky, is just looking at, he looks across the village and is like, ah, there you are, Uzumaki Naruto. And you're immediately asking yourself the question of like, wait, what? There's no way Naruto's over there, because Naruto is one, in a different dimension. Two, Kawaki is the only character who has, as far as we're aware, proper access to that dimension. So he's not looking at Kawaki as such here. So what's going on here? Who is he sensing as being in the village? Is his target wrong or what? And we'll get that explained as we go through the chapter here. So yeah, we see, Delta goes over to Kawaki and she's trying to wake him up, so he is out cold here. And then Jura just says, Hidari, he's here close by. What does that mean? Are you sure? And so here's his logic here of like why he believes Naruto is nearby. He is a Jinchuriki who bears a Biju. As an incarnation of a fellow Biju, I can sense the Biju chakra dwelling inside him. And immediately you just go, wait, what's going on here? One, it seems like Jura doesn't know that Naruto no longer has a Biju, a tail beast, Kurama, inside him. As far as we're aware, Kurama is gone, like literally gone. Not even like reborn in the way the tail beasts are meant to be, but that literally the Baryon mode, how it worked was that it consumed Kurama's energy to be the most powerful ability that Naruto had. That was the whole kind of point of it. It is that it created this sort of like energy destroying kind of ability. So if it is Kurama's kind of chakra that's being sensed here, that should be gone. Not to mention, again, Naruto's in a different dimension and you're sensing him in the village. How does that make any sense? What's going on here? Is it the target that's wrong, or is it the method of sensing that's wrong? But we still have to get the reveal on what is he sensing in the village. That's what we're building up to here. So we see Sarada and Sumire on the move to find out who this Sasuke person is with the same chakra. And of course, Sarada in her head is thinking that like, oh yeah, Boruto told me that like my father was absorbed by the Ten Tails. Who has arrived at Konoha here? Then we see Team Inoshika Cho, who also have Himawari with them. They're on the move also. And they're like, hey, even if it is Master Sasuke, don't hesitate to strike. He's helping Boruto, which makes him just as much of a traitor. And Inojin is just like, don't worry, Himawari, I'll protect you. And so last 2 pages here, we get Jura and Hidari arriving right in front of Team Inoshika Cho and Himawari. And Jura is looking ahead. This is where his sensing has brought him towards. So he looks at Himawari, And she has a bit of a like, what's going on here? Hidari's like, which one is it? Who is Uzumaki Naruto? And Jura just says, this is odd. What in the world is going on here? Because it's clear he's looking. Who he is sensing is, it's directly coming from Himawari. This is what his sensing has led him towards. Himawari Uzumaki. What's going on here? It's the same quote. What's the situation here? Obviously, a few things immediately pop into your head. One, is his target actually Himawari? I don't think that's meant to be the case, because that would imply that his instinct about forming his target was purely based on, my target is a person who has Biju chakra from the Leaf Village, which I don't think it's meant to be that mysterious, because the whole point of it is that it makes sense that the Moegi Divine Tree's target is Konohamaru, someone she's close to. The Sasuke one is Sarada. The bug one is Ada, because I guess he guarded over her for so long. Well, we have to get some explanation there, of course. But the Jura one, because we don't really know what the situation is about who he's based on, with Ishiki still being the main theory, it's like, I guess Naruto makes sense as being like the person who kind of was most likely to thwart his plans. But I have to assume that who they choose as the individual to be their target is not wrong. It's definitely more the case from a few pages ago, the whole idea of, wait, you have out-of-date information. Why are you trying to track Naruto down by the fact that he's a Jinchuriki when he's literally not been a Jinchuriki since that Ishiki fight? So that would almost imply, like, is that a connection to the whole Ishiki thing? That because Ishiki was effectively killed by this attack, he might not have known the result of Naruto using that ability meant that he doesn't have that anymore. So the last knowledge that Ishiki had was that Naruto is still a Jinchuriki. And then it gets into sort of the idea of like how publicly known is that fact also. So that's an interesting one. Not to mention the whole idea of like, he's not very technical with this. He's tracking down someone who has tailed beast chakra. So, like, if Killer Bee was here, would that be who he was led to? Or is this specifically that, like, he can sense it is, like, the nine-tailed fox, Kurama? Which, that's the other question that then comes up, of course, is this means, if we take Jura to be fully accurate, and I assume because it's the cliffhanger of the chapter, it is accurate, this means Himawari actually does have tailed beast Biju chakra inside of her. And the question is like, how, what, why, when? Like, all the questions come up. The thing that I think, probably from a story perspective, maybe makes the most sense to a certain degree is like, is Kurama somehow being reborn within Himawari? Because I'm guessing the idea is that she doesn't know about this, or she has known something's happening to her for the last while, but really doesn't know the explanation. So if Jura says anything about this to her, this might answer some of her kind of questions that she's been having. But certainly an explanation is going to be needed about like what's going on here, because we obviously don't know for sure it specifically relates to Kurama, like the Nine Tails, and what exactly has happened here. Like, how does that work? That, like, that energy that is part of a 10 tails, one of the 9-tailed beasts is gone. How does that work in relation to, like, other Jinchuriki, like, out there in the world? That's the kind of question that we kind of end up having here. Because obviously Himawari, just based on her bloodline, is a very suitable candidate to be a Jinchuriki, because of course it's the, you know, Kushina, Naruto, Himawari line. Like she's going to be ideal for that. That shouldn't be a problem for her, especially with the Hyuga blood in there as well, like two powerful kind of bloodlines here. It's really just the question of like, how did she get it? Is this something that has been there since birth? Is this something that like Naruto put some of Kurama's chakra in her at some point, like maybe on purpose or accidentally at some point? Or is it some sort of a thing where like maybe just before Kurama like faded away and died, his last ounce of energy like went into Himawari? Because I don't know, it's just one of those things where like are they trying to do this thing where they do bring back Kurama, but not in the way that makes it feel like, oh, you're just giving Naruto his powers back type situation, where here, no, Naruto's still not a Jinchuriki. He still doesn't have those abilities anymore. Instead, they go to his daughter, an up-and-coming shinobi, and now she is a Jinchuriki and has to deal with what that means. Obviously, a few questions kind of come into mind in regard to, like, is it going to be Kurama, or will it be like a different kind of being that is the tail beast? Like the identity known as Kurama is gone, but that energy forms into like a different kind of character as the tail beast. There's a few options that we kind of have here with this, but it's certainly a super interesting thing to give to Himawari. Now, does this have anything to do with the whole demon Himawari interactions from many chapters ago, where like he encountered her for the first time and was just kind of surprised and was just like, oh, you're really powerful, and she's just like, no, I'm not, and he kind of reassessed it and was like, oh yeah, like outwardly she's not really powerful, but like there's something about her, and it's like, do you actually sense a power within Himawari, or is this just some weird thing where kind of like Ada and Mitski, he also maybe is going through something about like his understanding his feelings, and does he like Himawari, that sort of thing. There's a bunch of questions that you would have here. Where does this lead to is the other point, in terms of like, if it's made public to her that she has these abilities, I'm assuming we'll see traces of her like beginning to use them to a certain degree. But then you ask the question of like, is her as a Jinchuriki going to have a similar path to Naruto, where it's kind of out of control and she really has to learn how to use it, otherwise it will be dangerous? Or if it is Kurama, he's going to be nice about this, and maybe she'll have access to these abilities earlier. Not to mention just the idea of like Jura is going to realize like, okay, this is not who I'm looking for. Okay, I have out-of-date information. Where is Naruto? And so he clearly, I guess, doesn't know where Naruto is. He doesn't have the obvious information that I think we all probably assumed that we would have, which is that, oh, he's my target. I know he's alive, because I can sense him exactly where he is. No, he's completely clueless in this situation. The implication probably is that he maybe can access the dimension Naruto is in once he realizes that that's the case. The question is really just going to be about like, who tells him what the situation is here. And because he's such an evolving character in terms of power, but also intelligence, it's like, does he actually know or not? Because I guess omnipotence, like, he came into being, I suppose, to a certain degree after omnipotence, so he doesn't necessarily know about the whole lie going on about it. So if he just says like, hey, Naruto's alive, only a few characters will actually like trust that. So I guess there's going to be a bit of a mystery surrounding what's going on here. But the other setup going on here is like, obviously, within a minute or two, you assume Sarada is going to arrive on the scene and see this Sasuke Divine Tree character for the first time. That's going to be interesting. It feels like that fight is pretty much destined to happen like any time now, and we're waiting to see the scope of Sarada's powers. How much training has she done in the meantime? Sumire is going to be there as well, so you know what's happening with her abilities and like the Nue type stuff. Will we see any of that? Shikacho is here. I assume Konohamaru is probably going to arrive on the scene soon-ish. And that might draw out, like, of course, the Moegi one. And then I assume if we're doing everything right now, the Bug Divine Tree character is also going to get drawn here also. And we could have a pretty mega kind of group conflict in play here. But yeah, lots of interesting questions here. None of which, of course, I think we can overly speculate on right now, but I like that we have a lot of questions to ask, just about, like, who is the target? What does he actually know about Naruto? Why does he know that Naruto's a potential target? who is Jura based on, and like when is that detail actually going to come out to help explain some of this stuff. And then all the questions about Himawari and Biju chakra is going to be fascinating to discuss. So yeah, I think that's basically everything I want to talk about with the chapter. Like, I like that it's a super like speculation focused ending to the chapter, and I think it just means like the next volume, at least the next group of 4 chapters at least, is going to be pretty interesting. Like, you can't go lower than this going forward. Like, you have to keep the momentum up given where we're at here. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on chapter 8 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.